are you from originally?
Everybody's story is unique. Everybody's experience is unique when they come.
So how difficult was that for you? Greetings from Chicagoland. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Munira's Musings, where we explore unique stories of our incredible guests. Our incredible guest today is Heidy De la Cruz, all the way from New York. Yes?
Florida.
Florida. Oh,
yeah.
In New York, Florida, the East Coast. Welcome to Munira's Musings, Heidy.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are most welcome. Now, ladies and gentlemen, each of our episodes is designed not only to highlight our guest's journey, but also to uncover valuable insights that you can all learn from. Through their experiences, we aim to inspire, educate, and empower you in your own path. If you enjoy these conversations, go ahead and share it with somebody. And without further ado, sit back, tune in, and let's dive into conversations that matter. So, Heidy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so like you said, I am Heidy De la Cruz. I host the award-winning podcast, The American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants, where immigrants share their journey of coming to the United States, which you were a guest of. Thank you so much for that. And I also help women entrepreneurs and busy moms launch their podcast with my digital products and my 6-week course. So I broke things down in a simple way, so it's not overwhelming, it's not complicated, it's straightforward, step by step, and no gatekeeping. And then I also write a weekly personal development newsletter on Substack called Into My Thoughts. And then I have my newsletter to provide podcasting tips on a weekly basis for those who want to start their podcast or want to grow their podcast. So I'm constantly providing tips and updates on the podcast industry. So that's all the things I do. I am married, 2 kids, and I also have a 9-to-5. So I do work for a nonprofit health insurance. I'm a medical coding and benefit analyst. So do a little bit of everything. And before we start recording, I did tell you that I am stepping into my speaking era. So I am have been booked for virtual summits to talk about podcasting, and then also in-person speaking engagements as well to talk and teach about podcasting. So that's a little bit about me.
So that's amazing, right? But let's go back, right?
Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
Yes. So I was born in New York. That's probably why you thought I was in New York. So I was born in New York, raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then now I'm in Florida. My parents immigrated from the Dominican Republic in the 90s, so Dominican American. And so, so I usually just tell people I'm Dominican when they ask where I'm from.
Nice. Okay. So why is your podcast about immigration, immigrants, and why is that so important to you?
Yes. So my podcast is about immigrants because my parents were immigrants themselves. And when I was looking to start a podcast, this was way back in 2019, was really when I wanted to start it. I realized I like people's stories. I love learning from people's stories. We can learn a lot of lessons. We can see what works, what doesn't work. And I really feel like that's how things are changed, right? When something is affecting someone based on their story. And so I wasn't able to start my podcast until 2022, although I got the message in my heart in 2019. So when I was actually researching to start this podcast, it was like 2022. And I was like, okay, I still want to start this podcast. I still love people's stories. So it's like, I want to highlight people's stories, but then you got to really niche down and be like, okay, what stories or what type of stories am I going to highlight? What is going to be my unique angle to storytelling? And so as I was researching everything to start a podcast, I came across an article from an immigrant from Kenya, and she was sharing cultural shocks that she experienced after moving to the United States, and how that immigration experience really diminished her confidence and made her have self-doubt and things like that. So that article really touched me because we don't hear a lot about people's immigration story per se. Like what was it like back home? How did they get to the United States? How was it once they got here? Did they have help? Did they not? And things like that. So after reading the article, I remember discussing it with my husband because, again, he's an immigrant himself. So I've always been surrounded by immigrants my whole life. So again, I've known like about the immigration process. I've heard and things like that. So discussing with my husband about his immigration story, I listening to him. He was 9 years old when he came. So I was like, I think that's what I want my podcast to be about. I'm gonna talk to immigrants about their journey coming to the United States. I was like, I want to share the good, the bad, and the ugly, because depending on the immigrant, depending on where they come, there's a lot of factors that come into play with their experience when they come. So some people had really good experiences, some people do not. And so I was like, I want to share it all because, everybody's story is unique. Everybody's experience is unique when they come here to the United States. So then I really got to, researching about the immigration experience and like who could I interview and things like that. So I started with friends and family, again, because I'm just surrounded by immigrants. And then once I put it on Facebook that I was looking for particularly immigrant guests, it just took off. Like I have constantly had people, come on, pitch themselves or wanting to be on, and I, constantly have been reaching out to people when I like see or could tell that either they're child of immigrants or they're immigrants themselves. Because I do like to interview second generation immigrants because they're unique. Their experience growing up with immigrant parents is unique versus children who grew up with native born parents here. So that's how it got started. And it's important because, again, storytelling is very powerful, just like you're sharing, stories on here to share lessons, to teach, to inspire, to motivate. Same thing with sharing immigrant stories. I'm talking to people literally from all over the world. So I'm learning a lot about culture. I'm learning a lot about our history. I'm learning a lot about what drives people to the United States. And honestly, it's the one word keeps coming up throughout when I talk to people, and it's opportunities. Like when they're choosing to come versus having to, be forced to come if they're asylum seekers or refugees. When they're choosing to come, it's mostly because of the opportunities that the United States provides that you can't find in other countries, or it's a lot harder to get in other countries.
Our podcast deals with entrepreneurs and people who are looking for the next opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And you are teaching people and to get on a podcast and how to start a podcast.
Yes.
So how difficult was that for you? You said you had the idea in 2019 and then you didn't start it until 3 years later. So
yep.
Why was there such a long gap?
And that's actually very common. So when I talk to people about like when they wanted to start versus like now, it's like, okay, I'm planning this, I want to do it. So what I was speaking to clients, for some people, it's just like they just put it off. Like when you want to start a project, like write a book or start a business or anything like that, like you kind of like put it off, and then the nudge is still there years later. And then you're like, okay, I really do need to, let me seek out help. So for me, it was different. I wanted to start the podcast in 2019. I was doing actually my master's program in 2019, and I was actually studying to go to law school. So at one point I was going to, I thought I was going to become an immigration attorney. So I was actually studying for the LSAT in 2019 and I took it. So that's why I didn't have the capacity to start a podcast then. 2020 was the pandemic, so I was not able to start it then. And then in 21, we were buying a house, and also I was pregnant with my son. So life kept happening to me that I wasn't able to start. So it was actually in my maternity leave that I was like, okay, I'm off from work. So is my husband. So as he takes care, we took turns, taking care of our newborn. So as he was taking care of our son, like I was actually researching how to start a podcast. So it's like, okay, it's been 3 years. I still want to start this. Let me finally start this. So I'm the type of person that I'm self-motivated. So like when I want to do something, I will figure it out any way that I can. However, not everybody's like that. Some people need, someone else to like tell them the steps or hold them accountable and things like that. And so once I started my podcast, I want to say like a few months to like a year in, again, as I am interacting with other podcasters, I'm in podcasting groups on Facebook, I kept seeing a lot that people wanted to start, but they felt overwhelmed with all the information that was out there on how to start a podcast, which I felt too. Like literally when you Google how to start a podcast, like there's so much, and there's so many different articles and things. It's like, oh, start with this first or start with this and things like that. So as I kept seeing people feeling overwhelmed, which I felt myself, I was like, I can break down how to start a podcast into a 6-week simple, step-by-step process. And so that's what I did. So I brainstormed, okay, if I'm going to start a podcast today, how would I start it? Like, what would I do different in my journey? And so I wrote down the steps that I would take. And so then I broke it down into a 6-week program. So I have a course that people can take. The videos are 10 to 15 minutes long. They're not long at all. So it's not overwhelming. Again, I wanted to make it as simple as possible. So I break it down into 6 weeks. So you can do it in 6 weeks, or you can do it in less time. It really depends on to you, like how fast or how slow you want to go. And so, yeah, so that's how I got started. And that's why it took me the 3 years from when I wanted to start to when I actually did start the podcast.
So this is a lesson for all the entrepreneurs out there who are wannabe entrepreneurs out there. It's not just the podcast, but it's anything that you have in mind. When you start thinking of something, any ideas, my mentor says that you are already equipped. Once you get that idea, you're already equipped for that. So sometimes we scare ourselves and we procrastinate. So my tip for the day would be go ahead and write down all of the ideas that come to you and just keep jotting them down, because once you're equipped and you still don't know about it, the ideas will help you refine and define what your product is going to be. So it's not only just for starting a podcast, but it's all of the ideas that you have.
Yeah.
And thank you, Heidi, for sharing that. So now you're writing blogs, and so this is a form of media, right?
Yes.
You're talking to people from all over the world. You're getting exposure. You're writing stuff. Why does this matter? Why should somebody be out there in all types of different media? Isn't it overwhelming?
It can be overwhelming at times. Right. I'm a writer at heart. So I've been writing my whole life. And I use the writing as a way to market my podcast and my business. Some people like to do video content and stuff like that. I tried that and it overwhelmed me and it did not bring me joy. And so when I realized that it was burning me out, not bringing me joy, I was like, okay, I got to figure out a marketing strategy that works for me. It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. It doesn't matter what is trending, because if I'm burnt out and I'm not having joy from this, I can't provide the best service to my clients, right? So I had to brainstorm, take a step back and brainstorm. And I realized, like, okay, I enjoy writing. I enjoy writing about different topics. I enjoy, like, in the writing process for me is not stressful at all, which is why then I started my blog about podcasting, because it's a way, again, to market my business, my products, but then also bring people into my podcast. So that's why I did that. The writing it can be overwhelming, just again, because I'm doing, like I said, I'm doing the personal development on a weekly basis, but then also the blog. So it can get overwhelming at times. But again, since I enjoy the writing process so much, it's really what works for me. So I feel like that's a big lesson for either inspiring entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs now that are maybe feeling burnt out. Figure out what is it that is burning you out? What is it that it's not bringing you joy? Because if the content that you're creating is not bringing you joy, your clients are going to see that. Like, it's not going to hit on your target audience, right? It's not going to feel authentic. It's not going to feel right. So you want to make sure that you're marketing your business in a way that feels right and good for you. So then that way you can reach the correct audience. You can, get your clients and things like that.
So you mentioned something that really that really hits the nail on the head for me, because you said that there's so much content out there to start a podcast. How do you stand out under all of this content?
Yes. So I'm very big on marketing and letting people know that I do this the simple way. So I'm very step forward with the steps that I share in my products and in my courses. And it's literally, one step at a time. So it's like on a weekly basis, right? So again, I made the videos 10 to 15 minutes long, because I've done courses myself where like the videos, they're like multiple videos, like five times a week. And it's like 45 minutes long, the videos. And it's like that's too much. Also, depending on what you're trying to, teach people and things like that. So I was like, what is one way that I can make this as simple as possible? So I really broke it down. And then each week, the steps lead on from the following week. So you're like building on each week. And so before I launched it, before I put it out to the world, I did, I did have a few people go through the course and give me feedback. It's like, did this feel like it was too much? Did it not feel like it was too much? Like, give me your honest feedback to be able to fix and things like that. So based on the feedback that I received from the people, I then ahead and made adjustments to the digital products and to the course to make sure that it wasn't overwhelming. And then also another thing that stands me out is my course is not thousands of dollars. I've been told multiple times to raise my prices and to make more money. But my thing is, I'm here to help people. I want them to, if they have that desire to start a podcast, I don't want the price of the course to be a hindrance to them as to why they don't start. Because you can start a podcast with $0. You absolutely can. But I want to make sure that you know what you're getting into when you're getting into a podcast, because there's a lot of behind the scenes work that gets into it. And I want you to set it up the correct way. So that way you have a consistent content schedule, a consistent recording schedule, and a consistent editing schedule. So then that way you can sustain this podcast for a long time. Because I don't know if you know this, but over 90% of people who start podcasts, they don't make it to the 10th episode. Like, people start podcasts, like there's a lot of podcasts out there, but there's not a lot of active podcasts. Active as in like they're consistently putting out new content, right? So, and the reason why that happens is, again, they start a podcast without a plan, without knowing what all the work that takes on behind the scenes. And then they realize like, man, I don't have a consistent schedule. This is too much. And so they quit. And I don't want that for people. I want, if they do have the desire to start a podcast, to have a plan, be able to provide consistent content for their listeners and have fun with it too. Like, I definitely don't want this to be overwhelming. I want this to be fun. I want this to either be a marketing strategy for their business, or if it's a busy mom that, it has a story in her heart that she wants to share, that she can realize like, hey, although I have kids, I still have time to be able to do my project, right? My hobbies and do something for me.
So what I'm hearing from you is, for the entrepreneurs out, whatever you're trying to do is plan it out. She's talking about a podcast, but the same lessons can be reflected and used on anything that you're trying to do.
Yes.
Just plan it out. Don't get overwhelmed. Have fun with it. Enjoy it, because you don't want to make this a task. You want to make this feel like this thing. I remember when I first started my podcast 8 years ago. This year's going to be my 8th.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And, I've talked to over 600 people. And the first year, I didn't know how to streamline. I didn't have all the right equipment. I mean, 8 years ago, things were very different, even though it's only 8 years ago. But the thing was, I was not working on my time. I was working on other people's time. So there were days when I would do podcasts because somebody said, I can do it at this time.
Yes.
You look at the earlier videos on my channels, they were long, they were not totally scripted, but they were just all over the place.
Yeah.
And that created a lot of should I say havoc in my life, because I wasn't sticking to a schedule. I didn't have a plan. And it took me almost a year and a half to realize that I'm getting burnt out, because there were days when I would talk to 4 different people, and that's 4 hours of my life that's gone, and they were not scripted. There was no planning. So then I had to go and look at other podcasters and see how they're doing it. And at that time, podcast was not that big, but putting a mic in front of people was just something that I love to do, because I like meeting people as well. And I also have had a wide array of different entrepreneurs and different people from different walks of the life to come and talk to me. So that's something as entrepreneurs you also want to do, is plan it out. Don't get overwhelmed with something, because like she said, you're going to just burn out and not continue with it.
Yeah, one of the biggest tips that I like to give people that, your audience is entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, is reach out to someone who is doing what you want to do. So kind of adding into the tip that you gave earlier about, like, if you have an idea, you're already equipped, so write it all down. And then whichever one really stands out, it's like, okay, this is what I want to do. Find someone who's doing it, reach out and ask questions, whether you do have to pay for a consultation or for a consultation call, or hopefully they offer free calls, but reach out to them and ask them questions about like how they started and if they could provide you tips, because and I know that takes a lot of courage to ask for help, but honestly, you will be surprised how many people are actually more willing to help than not. And also, when people ask for help, I mean, that feels good for them because it's like, oh my gosh, what is it about me that you want to learn from me? You see what I'm saying? So for aspiring entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who, maybe want to branch out or do something else, ask somebody who's ever doing what you want to do. Ask them and learn from them and get some tips, as many tips as you can. Don't do this alone. Like whenever you're starting anything, don't do it alone because it can get overwhelming. You can make mistakes. I mean, obviously we learn from mistakes, but there's certain mistakes that you can avoid, right? From when you talk to somebody or you hire a coach or you get a consultant. So that's my tip that I want to provide today.
Thank you very much. So how do people find you, Heidy?
Yes, so you can find me at my website, HeidyDeLaCruz.com. I am also on Instagram, so Heidy, Heidy, period, De La Cruz, DELACRUZ 13. And yeah, and then my podcast, you can listen to it everywhere, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartMedia. It is The American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants. And yes, that's where you can find me.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. This has been an amazing conversation. And it's a wrap because, of course, we'd like to continue this. But we hope that you found inspiration and valuable insights from today's conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share, like, and subscribe so you don't ever miss an update. And if this resonated with you, leave us a review, what you liked, what you didn't like, and share it with somebody who can benefit from it. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep making an impact. See you in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Heidy.
No, thank you.